Hello, everyone, and welcome to English Listening Practice Hub. My name is Alex, and I am very happy to have you here with me today. Take a deep breath, relax your shoulders, and let this moment be only for you. In this story, you will listen to the inspiring and powerful life of Nelson Mandela, a man who changed not only his country, but also the way the world thinks about courage, justice, and forgiveness. Today, we will move slowly, step by step, through his life. From his childhood in a small village, to his fight against injustice, to the long years in prison, to his rise as a global symbol of hope, and finally, to the wisdom he left behind for all of us. As you listen, you will learn natural English, new expressions, and new ways to think about the world, all in a calm and simple flow. Remember, the goal is not perfection. The goal is understanding, feeling, and growing. So, sit comfortably. Let your mind open. Let your heart listen. Our story begins in South Africa in the year 1918. A boy named Nelson Mandela was born in a small village called Mvizo. His childhood was peaceful, quiet, and full of tradition. He learned the values of community, respect, and responsibility from a very young age. He played with friends on open fields. He listened to stories told by elders around evening fires. He learned that every person has a role in their community. He learned that every action has meaning. When he went to school, his teacher gave him a new name, Nelson. This was common at that time in South Africa. But even with this new name, he carried the spirit of his family and his culture with him. As he grew older, Mandela began to see something strange. He noticed that life was not equal for everyone. He saw that people with white skin had more power, more rights, and more freedom. He saw that people with black skin were treated unfairly. Schools were not equal. Jobs were not equal. Opportunities were not equal. Even though he was just a young man, a quiet fire was growing inside him. A fire that whispered, something is wrong. Something must change. Mandela continued his studies. He learned history, politics, and law. He discovered that knowledge can be a powerful tool, sometimes more powerful than any weapon. He believed that understanding the world is the first step to changing it. With every year, he became stronger in his beliefs. He did not want to fight with anger. He wanted to fight with ideas, with courage, with persistence. His voice started to rise. People began to notice him. He spoke with calm determination. He believed in fairness. He believed in dignity. He believed that all humans, no matter their color or background, deserve respect. This belief became the foundation of his entire life. Soon, Mandela joined a political group called the African National Congress, the ANC. It was a movement of people who wanted justice in South Africa. They wanted equality. They wanted freedom. Mandela worked day and night. He helped organize peaceful protests. He inspired young people. He spoke about dreams, not fears. But the government did not like this. They wanted to protect a system called apartheid, a system that forced people to live separately and unequally based on their race, a system built on division, pain, and control. Mandela's voice was growing louder, and the more he spoke, the more the government tried to silence him. Still, he continued. He once said, "A winner is a dreamer who never gives up." And he lived these words every day. This is where our journey truly begins. with a young man who decided that freedom is worth every risk, every sacrifice, and every challenge. Now, let us walk deeper into his life. Let us follow him into the years where his courage would be tested in ways he never imagined. This is only the beginning. As Nelson Mandela moved into adulthood, the world around him became more difficult, more tense, and more unfair. South Africa was changing, but not in a good way. The government was creating stronger laws that separated people based on race. Black South Africans were pushed into poor lands. They were given low-quality schools. They were not allowed to vote. They were not allowed to live where they wished. They were not allowed to dream freely. Mandela watched all of this with a heavy heart. But instead of feeling hopeless, he felt a new kind of strength growing inside him. A strength that whispered, "Stand up, speak. Do not look away." He continued his work with the African National Congress. He walked through crowded streets, met with workers, students, and mothers, and listened to their stories. He heard their fears. He heard their pain. He heard their desire for a better life. The more he listened, the more he understood something important. A leader is someone who carries the voices of others. Mandela was becoming that leader, slowly, quietly, and with great humility. During this time, he also became one of the first black lawyers in Johannesburg. He opened a law office with his friend Oliver Tambo. Together, they helped people who could not afford legal support. They listened to problems with patience. They defended people who were mistreated by the system. Every case was a small act of resistance. Every client was a reminder of why he fought. But the government watched him closely. They warned him. They followed him. They tried to silence him through fear. Mandela refused to stop. He organized peaceful marches and protests, encouraging people to stand up with dignity, not violence. He spoke with a calm but powerful voice, saying that freedom could not be taken away forever. He believed that one day, his country would break free from injustice. But peaceful protests were met with force. Police used violence. They beat protesters. They arrested innocent people. They created fear in every town and every family. Mandela struggled deeply with this. He wanted a peaceful path, but he also watched his people suffer. He saw that the government had no intention of listening, no intention of changing, no intention of treating Black South Africans as human beings. After many long nights of discussion and reflection, Mandela faced one of the hardest decisions of his life. He decided to support a movement that used sabotage, not to hurt people, but to damage the structures that kept apartheid alive. He believed it was the last option. He believed that silence would be worse than resistance. This choice brought new danger. Mandela knew he could be arrested at any moment. He knew he could lose his freedom. He knew that his life would never be the same. But when he looked around and saw the fear in people's eyes, when he listened to their stories of injustice, when he remembered the dreams of children for a better future, he said to himself, "If I do not stand now, then when?" In 1962, the government finally captured him. He was put on trial, accused of trying to overthrow the state. The courtroom was cold, filled with reporters, police officers, and judges who already believed he was guilty. But Mandela stood tall. He spoke clearly. He did not show fear. During the trial, he delivered one of the most powerful speeches in history. He said he was fighting for a country where all people could live together in harmony. He said he wanted freedom not only for Black people, but for everyone. And he ended with these unforgettable words: "It is an ideal for which I am prepared to die." The room fell silent. The judges looked down. The world listened. Mandela was sentenced to life in prison. He was taken to a place called Robben Island, a lonely prison surrounded by the cold waters of the ocean. It was a place meant to break men. Small cells, hard labor, no comfort, no freedom, no hope. But Mandela carried something with him that the guards could not take away: his spirit. Inside that prison, Mandela became even stronger. He woke up before sunrise. He worked in the hot sun, breaking stones. He studied at night. He taught other prisoners. He encouraged them not to give up. He told them that a man's mind can stay free even when his body is not. His heart did not harden. His mind did not darken. He refused to hate. Slowly, quietly, he became a symbol of freedom for the entire world. People in many countries began to speak his name. Millions started asking for his release. They saw him not as a criminal, but as a leader of justice. Mandela once said, "No one is born hating another person." This belief became the light he carried inside the prison walls. And even though the years passed, 1, 5, 10, 20, he continued to believe that one day South Africa would change. One day his people would rise. One day his nation would choose unity over division. He never lost faith. He never allowed despair to blind him. He held on to hope as if it were a living friend standing beside him. This part of his life, the long, quiet, painful years, shaped him into a man the world would soon admire. And now, the story moves toward a moment that would shake the entire country. The moment when the prison doors began to open. The years inside Robben Island moved slowly, like heavy clouds crossing an endless sky. Days became weeks, weeks became months, and months became years. Still, Nelson Mandela refused to let darkness enter his heart. He believed that hope is not something the world gives you. Hope is something you create inside yourself, piece by piece, moment by moment. Even in prison, he stayed disciplined. He exercised in his small cell. He read books. He studied law and politics. He helped other prisoners stay strong. He listened to their fears, their dreams, their memories of home. He spoke softly with calm confidence, reminding them that courage is not the absence of fear, but the triumph over it. This quiet strength made Mandela not only a prisoner, but a teacher, a guide, and eventually a symbol of freedom far beyond those prison walls. As the years passed, the world outside South Africa began to change. People in different countries learned about Mandela's story. They learned about apartheid, about injustice, about the pain of millions. They marched in the streets. They sang songs calling for his release. They wrote letters, sent messages, and created movements that spread across continents. South Africa was feeling the pressure. Its government was losing support. Its economy was struggling. Its people were rising. And in the middle of all this, Mandela remained in his small cell, steady, patient, and unbroken. In the late 1980s, signs of change began to appear. The apartheid system was weakening. Leaders from the government started secret conversations with Mandela. They knew that without him, the country would never find peace. They needed a voice that people trusted, a voice that did not speak with hatred, but with wisdom. Mandela listened. He did not rush. He did not make demands for himself. His only goal was simple and clear: a South Africa where every person could live with equal rights and dignity. Finally, on a warm day in February 1990, after 27 long years, the prison gates opened. Nelson Mandela walked out into the sunlight, holding his wife Winnie's hand, while thousands of people cheered, cried, and raised their fists toward the sky. The world watched this moment live on television. People from every continent felt something shift inside them. It was not just a man walking out of prison. It was hope walking out. It was forgiveness walking out. It was the beginning of a new chapter for an entire nation. Mandela's face was calm. His smile was soft. He walked with the dignity of someone who knew he still had a long journey ahead of him. He quickly returned to political leadership. He traveled across the country, speaking to crowds of thousands. He visited communities that had suffered for decades. He called for unity, not revenge. He told people that anger could destroy the new South Africa before it even began. Many were surprised by his message. After everything he had experienced, the injustice, the prison, the loss, he still believed in the power of forgiveness. He believed that a nation built on hatred would never be free. He once said, "Resentment is like drinking poison and then hoping it will kill your enemies." These words became a guiding light for millions. In 1994, South Africa finally held its first free election, an election where every citizen, regardless of race, could vote. Millions stood in long lines, some for many hours, waiting for their chance to make history. When the votes were counted, Nelson Mandela became the first Black president of South Africa. It was one of the most important moments of the 20th century, a moment that proved that patience, courage, and faith can overcome even the darkest systems. As president, Mandela focused on healing the nation. He worked to unite people who had once feared and hated each other. He visited poor communities. He created programs that supported education and health. He encouraged conversations between groups that had been divided for generations. One of his most powerful decisions was supporting the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, a process where victims and offenders spoke openly about the pain of the apartheid years. It was not easy. Many tears were shed, but Mandela believed that a nation cannot heal if it hides its wounds. He also used sports as a tool for unity. When South Africa hosted the Rugby World Cup in 1995, Mandela wore the national team's green jersey, a symbol that had once represented white power. His simple gesture sent a message across the world. We are one country now, one team, one future. This moment became legendary. It was a reminder that leadership is not only about power. It is about empathy, wisdom, and the ability to see beyond pain. Mandela served as president for one term. He did not cling to power. He believed that true leadership also means knowing when to step back. After leaving office, he continued working for peace, education, and global human rights. He traveled, gave speeches, and supported charities. His presence alone inspired millions. But as the years passed, his health began to weaken. He spent more time with his family, especially his grandchildren. He enjoyed quiet moments, listening to music, reading, and reflecting on life. In December 2013, at the age of 95, Nelson Mandela passed away peacefully. The world cried together. People gathered in streets, parks, churches, and stadiums. They sang, they prayed, they held candles in silence. But even in grief, there was a deep sense of gratitude. Mandela had lived a full life, a life dedicated to justice, courage, and hope. Today, his legacy continues. Children learn his story in schools. Leaders quote his words. People find strength in his example when they face difficult moments. Because Mandela taught us one powerful truth: freedom begins inside the human heart. And when a heart chooses courage over fear, love over hate, and hope over despair, it becomes unstoppable. After stepping down from the presidency, Nelson Mandela entered a new chapter of his life, one that was quieter but no less meaningful. He had carried the weight of a nation for many decades. He had walked through the darkest valleys and stood in the brightest sunlight. Now he finally had time to slow down, breathe, and reflect. Mandela believed deeply in the idea that a person's purpose does not end when their official work ends. Instead, he saw life as a long journey of learning, sharing, and giving. So even after leaving office, he continued to guide his country, not with authority, but with wisdom. He supported education programs for children. He spoke about the importance of reading, saying, "Education is the most powerful weapon you can use to change the world." He encouraged young people to dream boldly, to stay curious, and to believe that they could shape the future with their own hands. Mandela also focused on global peace. He traveled to different countries, meeting leaders, students, and communities. He talked about forgiveness, unity, and the power of dialogue. People listened to him with respect because his words came from experience, not theory. He had lived through injustice. He had lived through conflict. He had lived through pain. And yet he chose kindness. This choice made his voice stronger than any anger ever could. In his personal life, Mandela finally had more time for his family. During his long years in prison, he had missed many birthdays, many celebrations, and many simple moments. Now, he played with his grandchildren. He told them stories, just like the elders once told him stories around the evening fire when he was a boy. He taught them to be gentle and brave at the same time. He reminded them that humility is not weakness, it is strength under control. But even during these peaceful years, Mandela faced new challenges. His body grew weaker. He experienced health problems connected to the hard labor and difficult conditions he had endured in prison. There were days when moving, speaking, or even breathing felt heavy. Yet, he continued to rise each morning with patience. He continued to smile. He continued to share love with the people around him. He often said that courage is not dramatic. Courage is not loud. Courage is choosing to stand up every day, even when life is hard, even when the future is uncertain. During these final years, Mandela became a global symbol of humanity. People from every continent visited him or sent messages of gratitude. Some had never met him, never seen South Africa, and never lived through apartheid, but they felt connected to his spirit. He represented something universal, the belief that no matter how dark the road becomes, hope is always possible. Even when he could no longer travel, Mandela continued using his voice. He spoke about HIV/AIDS awareness in South Africa, encouraging people to seek help without fear or shame. He supported humanitarian causes, reminding the world that suffering anywhere affects everyone everywhere. But the most powerful message he gave in his later life was simple. I'm not a saint. I'm just a man who tried. This honesty made people love him even more. He never pretended to be perfect. He had doubts, fears, mistakes, and regrets, just like every human being. But what made him extraordinary was his ability to rise above them, to learn from them, to transform them into wisdom. Mandela believed that forgiveness frees the person who forgives even more than the person who is forgiven. He believed that anger steals energy, while compassion creates strength. He believed that change is slow, but always possible. His life became a living lesson, a reminder that a person's true power does not come from position, wealth, or fame. It comes from character. As the years continued, Mandela spent more time at home, surrounded by loved ones. He enjoyed the quiet, the softness of nature, the warmth of family meals. He looked back on his life with gratitude, not sorrow. He often said that he had lived a long, meaningful journey, a journey he never walked alone. By 2013, his health had become very fragile. Doctors visited often. His family stayed close, holding his hands, speaking softly to him. The world waited with heavy hearts, praying, remembering, and preparing to say goodbye. On December 5th, 2013, Nelson Mandela passed away peacefully at the age of 95. Across South Africa, people cried, sang, and held candles in their windows. Across the world, leaders gave speeches honoring his courage. Millions remembered the day he walked out of prison. Millions remembered his smile, his calm voice, his steady steps. Millions remembered the hope he brought into a world that desperately needed it. His funeral gathered people from more than 100 countries, a moment that showed how deeply one man's life could touch the entire planet. Even though Mandela was gone, his spirit remained. His ideas remained. His lessons remained. Today, people still speak his name with respect. Children learn about him as a symbol of justice. Young activists look to him for inspiration. Leaders read his words when they need guidance. His message is timeless. It always seems impossible until it is done. And his life proved that this is true. Mandela did not change the world because he was perfect. He changed it because he was determined, because he believed in people, because he never abandoned hope. He left behind a world brighter than the one he was born into. And that is the greatest success any human being can achieve. As we come to the final chapter of Nelson Mandela's story, I want you to slow down your breathing. Let the air move softly in and out. Let your mind rest in a calm, open space. Because Mandela's life was not only a story of politics or history, it was also a story of the human heart, a story of resilience, forgiveness, and unshakable hope. After his passing in 2013, the world entered a quiet moment of reflection. People in big cities and small villages looked back at the path he had walked. They thought about the boy born in a simple village, the young man who saw injustice, the leader who fought with courage, the prisoner who refused to break, and the president who healed a nation. Mandela's life teaches us that greatness is not something you claim. It is something you build step by step, action by action, choice by choice. His journey shows that even one person can move the world forward. not by shouting, not by fighting with hatred, but by living with purpose and compassion. In his years of reflection, Mandela often said that he was just an ordinary man with extraordinary determination. He believed that every person carries a light inside them, even when the world around them feels dark. He believed that hope is not a gift, it is a decision. He taught that forgiveness is not weakness. It is one of the strongest acts a human being can offer. Forgiveness transforms broken hearts. Forgiveness frees the future from the weight of the past. Mandela also believed deeply in the power of unity. He knew that people are stronger together than they could ever be alone. He knew that a nation built on cooperation is far more powerful than a nation built on fear. He knew that true peace is born when people choose understanding over anger. His life reminds us that courage does not mean you feel no fear. Courage means you walk forward even when fear stands in front of you. It means you open your mouth to speak truth even when your voice shakes. It means you hold on to hope even when the world tells you to give up. He once said, "The greatest glory in living lies not in never falling, but in rising every time we fall." And these words carry the heartbeat of his entire life. Mandela fell many times through loss, injustice, prison, illness. But every time he stood up again. Every time he rebuilt his strength. Every time he returned to the world with a heart that refused to close. That is why people still remember him. That is why his name is spoken with gratitude and admiration. That is why his legacy continues to shine like a quiet, steady flame. As we end this journey, imagine Mandela sitting peacefully in his later years, looking out at the soft horizon of the South African landscape. Imagine him breathing slowly, reflecting on the long road he had traveled. Imagine him smiling gently, knowing he had given everything he could to make the world a little kinder. And imagine him whispering to the next generation, to you, that the world still needs people who believe in justice, compassion, and unity. People who stand up, people who listen, people who forgive, people who dream. You are one of those people. You have the power to create change in your life, in your family, in your community, in the world. Not by being perfect, but by being sincere. Not by being loud, but by being steady. Not by being born a hero, but by choosing courage moment after moment. Mandela's life is a reminder that the road to freedom in any form begins inside us. It begins with a decision to believe that a better future is possible. It begins with the choice to rise again after each fall. It begins with the understanding that kindness is a force stronger than anger. So, as this story closes, let his journey stay with you. Let his courage inspire you. Let his wisdom guide you. Let his light remind you that you, too, can walk through darkness and still create hope. Because hope is not something you wait for. Hope is something you build, one breath, one word, one action at a time. And now, with a calm heart, we say goodbye to Nelson Mandela, but not to his lessons. Those remain with us, always. Hello, everyone, and thank you for staying with me through this long and meaningful journey. Stories like this are more than history. They're moments of learning, reflection, and growth. Every time you listen, your English improves, your understanding deepens, and your heart becomes a little stronger. If you enjoyed this story, Stay with us for the next one here on English Listening Practice Hub. Make sure to subscribe, follow, and keep listening every day. The more you listen, the more natural English becomes in your mind. Your progress will feel smoother, easier, and more confident with each session. Thank you for spending this time with me. I'm Alex, and I can't wait to meet you in our next story. Until then, keep learning, keep growing, and remember, every step you take builds your future.